July 2013, my first trip to Ireland. Now, my great-grandparents had come to America in 1870. And since that time, there had been no communication from one side of the Atlantic to the other for 150 years. So I thought, well, maybe I can find some of my relatives as long as I'm going to Ireland, right? So we started out, my husband and I started out in the National Library in Dublin. And we were in the genealogy department. And we spent a long time looking through the microfilms, searching through the microfilms for some kind of name, for a clue, for something that would give us some information. And we came to a dead end. You see, we knew that my great-grandparents had come from Clontusker Parish, and that was somewhere between Galway and Dublin. We knew that because it was on their marriage certificate, but that's all we knew. And then we found out that the church records, the records that would have the births, the deaths, the baptisms from that area of the country, from the early 1800s to the end of the century, had all been burned by the revolutionaries during the 1916 Civil War. And that was to keep them out of the hands of the British, because it's what the British used to tax people. Dead end. No, that was so disappointing. So we were leaving the library, just discouraged. And my husband found this little pamphlet. It was just sitting on the ledge, on the window ledge, as we walked out of the library. And it was for an organization called Ireland Reaching Out. Now, that organization helped people in Ireland try to find their relatives who had immigrated. So I thought, well, I don't have any other ideas. I'll give them a call. So when we got back to the B&B, I called, and a woman named Maureen answered. And I said, I'm looking for a family from Bridget and Malachi Curley. And she said, oh, the name Curley. Well, that would be around Ballinsloe. And I know an Eileen Curley from Ballinsloe. So I'm going to give her a call. Now, you call me back tomorrow. I did. She said, well, Eileen is not your gal, but she knows a man named Frank, and he is from Clontusker Parish. Now, I'm going to give Frank a call. You call me back tomorrow. And so I did. And she said, well, Frank will meet you at Clontusker Church this afternoon at 3:00. So my husband and I drove through all those little windy, narrow roads in Ireland until we found this little white church at the top of the hill. And I looked out and I saw this man. He was in his 70s. He had a shock of white hair. And I thought, he looks like my cousin Frank. And when I got out of the car, he said, Margaret, you look like my sister Maureen. Well, Frank took us to the gravestone of John and Honora Curley. John born in 1770 and Honora in 1775. They were the parents of my great-grandfather Malachi and Frank's great-grandfather Thomas. Frank and I were cousins. Family. And then Frank said, I want to take you home to meet my wife. So we followed him through the country roads, and we had a cup of tea and a little bite to eat with his wife, Maura. And then he said, I want to take you back to the homestead. And so we walked this little dirt lane behind Frank's house to the original stone cottage built by John and Honora in 1795. And to the side of it were the original stone barns that they had used. And Frank was still using it for his equipment and for the 150 sheep that he had grazing on that land. One for every year our family had been apart. And there I was, after 150 years, standing on the land of my great great grandfather, where his descendants had farmed for all that time. I went to Ireland, and with just a little bit of luck, I found the pot of gold.